Here we go. It's about 4 o'clock on day 4. Day 3 was an absolute disaster, and I've got my fingers crossed for day 4. What happened is right before I got into Edmonton, I literally blew a head gasket and lost an alternator. I put a can of this head gasket repair sealant in, and I had to buy a new alternator, and when I put the new alternator in, it smoked as soon as I started the car. Just smoke rolling off it. So I had to wait till the next day to get another alternator, and I was literally broke down on the side of the highway in Fort Saskatchewan, just north of Edmonton. This guy named Paul came by. Paul took his whole evening, drove me all over Fort Saskatchewan, helped me get everything I needed, helped me get all situated. I spent the night in a motel. The guy at the motel gave me like a half-off rate, and I didn't even ask. And the next day I went to Napa. I wanted to make sure that the alternator I had that was brought in that morning, that there wasn't a problem with the car that was going to fry the alternator. And so the guy at the Napa place, a fellow by the name of Garth, he totally set me up, made sure my battery was all charged up, let me use the parking lot to do all my wrenching and stuff. I used their power. God was really looking out for me in Fort Saskatchewan, because everything went wrong. And Fort Saskatchewan is a horrible town to be stuck in for somebody like me. It's all strip malls and literally like apartment housing, and it's all tons and tons of businesses, and there's just nowhere to be, you know, unless you check right into a hotel. And the guy at the hotel's name was Andrew, that I finally did get a room at, and he totally set me up. Didn't charge me half of what the room was supposed to be, just because he knew I was in a pickle. Super cool people in that town. So right now I'm about 150 miles past Edmonton. I'm finally back in the woods. Thank goodness I'm out of the plains, because even though I'm on a highway in the middle of nowhere, if I broke down here, I could take a tent, go set it up in the woods, make a nice campfire, hang out with the dog, and just wait for the cops to show up and wonder who the heck's got a campfire on the side of the highway. And in a town like Edmonton or Fort Saskatchewan, there's no place that you can just be. You've got to have an allocated space, kind of. You can't camp out on the sidewalk. So the last 24 hours have been horrible and amazing. I met some awesome people that totally made everything work out for me. Now I'm praying for the car. I've got a can of head gasket sealant in here, and so far it's holding. And the farther north I get, the safer I feel. I'm away from all the big cities, and I'm away from the plains, and worst case scenario, I'll just camp out for a few days until somebody stops by and gives me a ride to the next town. But it's way better to be stranded in the country than it is in the city. I don't know what I'd do stranded in the city. You can't let the dog out. That's my story of Fort Saskatchewan, which is actually in Alberta, so it's kind of a misnomer. But this is day 4. I lost 24 hours. Time to get back on the highway. Hi everybody. What day am I on? Day 4. 8 o'clock on day 4. I'm almost to Dawson Creek. I've got maybe another 30 miles to go and I'll be in Dawson Creek. And Dawson Creek is the start of the Alcan, so I know from there I've got 1,500 miles and I'm home. Me and Daisy are having a sandwich. Ham and butter and mustard on rye. You can check out this country. We're in the boreal forest now. Up north, out of the plains, out of the prairie land. So far my head gasket fix is holding good. Here, I'll show you. This is the stuff, aptly named head gasket fix by Rizlone, which it's just a Canadian brand. I don't think it's available in the States. Or in the States it's Bars Leak or something to that effect. But I dumped in the other half of the can today. I followed the directions as perfectly as I could. And I've been 400 miles and the car's running like a watch. It's not smoking anymore. It's not barfing antifreeze all over the place. Nothing's coming out the tailpipe. Lord willing, I'm gonna limp this thing into Fairbanks. I got all summer. I'll change the head gasket and I'll just keep running this car. It's got a brand new timing belt. Just needs a new head gasket. A lot of these little cars never make it to 250,000 miles before they need one. It'd be a good project. I changed the head gasket in my F-150 last year. Can't be any harder than that. There's the back of the Road Warrior, just packed full of junk. So much for that brand new paint job. I tell you what though, being back in the woods, it sure has been relieving. I don't care if I break down here because this is country that I feel very comfortable in. When I was broke down in Fort Saskatchewan, literally it's a brand spanking new city. I mean, it's like every single chain franchise you could think of all wadded into these sprawling mall centers and stuff, and then there's just apartment buildings everywhere, and there's like nowhere to be in that city other than maybe like sleeping in the parking lot of the cemetery, which would have been fine. Brewing a fresh pot of coffee. Nice little campsite here. Being that I'm a day behind, I plan on just pouring on the mustard all night long, because the next stretch from here is Dawson Creek to Fort St. John. I want to do that in the daylight because there's some big hills in that section, and from there the scenery's all right, but it's just 250 miles of just long rolly hills. And if you're going to take a section at night, that's not a bad one to take. If I could knock that out tonight before we kick off for the evening, that would be great. Because tomorrow would be Summit Lake, Stone Mountain, Muncho Lake, and there's no reason in the universe to do any of those legs at night. Number one, there ain't 100 feet of that road that's straight. It's just a snaky, curvy. A lot of it drops off into a river or off a cliff, and a lot of the road is kind of real humped too. You got to be paying attention on that stretch of road. It's fun to drive. I imagine it'd be just the bomb on a motorcycle, and it's like world-class scenery everywhere. I'll show you guys that in the next video. If I can get to Steamboat Mountain tonight, which is just a ridiculously long haul. It's probably another 400 miles from here. But if I could do that before I knocked off for the night, I'd be set up tomorrow to wake up in the most beautiful country on this whole trip. Drive it in the daylight, hopefully get some of it on camera. And if that head gasket sealant holds up, my alternator's working good. Man, to have an alternator and a head gasket go out. When I found out the head gasket, I could hear it. Just, you know, when I'd step on the gas real good, it was like, and I pulled over and it was like fog and mosquitoes. There was just a huge cloud of white smoke behind the car. I've just been running this thing like 75 miles an hour since I left Michigan, and I guess it just needs a little more love than that. Better go get my coffee. Oh yeah, she's getting there. This is the beautiful thing about Perk Pot coffee. It's like dial of coffee. Just put a little splash in the cup. Give it a good swish. Hopefully it's cool enough on the walls of the cup to cool that coffee down. Then give it a try. Oh, that's plenty. Too weak, leave it on. If it's too strong, well, you already went too far. If I can get 2,000 miles out of this, it'll be worth the 30 some Canadian dollars I spent for it. So far though, it's got me 400 more miles down the road. You know, the other thing too is once I hit Dawson Creek, from Dawson Creek, if you're going to Alaska, you go that way. There's only one road. So once I'm past there, realistically, if this thing totally broke down, I might find a ride in an RV, which wouldn't be the end of the world. I'm gonna pack all this stuff up, and I'll see you back on the road.